user-centered approach. So what does that look like? How do we break down design thinking into different components? So it's basically 5 major steps, and they are not in a linear fashion. They're very iterative. You go back and forth into it. So a very core component is empathy. What is empathy? Empathy is believing and thinking and living somebody else's experiences and thinking as our own. So not only are you just being empathetic or just trying to be relatable, but you actually try to live it. You try to understand them, their decisions, their context, their influences, their conformities. And then the second stage is where you're trying to define the problem that you're trying to solve. This could be your hypothesis statement. This could be your statement of intent. It could be the problem area. So for example, you could say that how might we use behavioral insight to change the way people react and respond to pollution or plastic or digitization or really anything at all, right? Or a motorcycle or remote control. Whatever you're trying to solve through design thinking, whether that's your business idea or product idea, that is what you use to really define what the problem is. And then another stage, which is very important, is ideate. So this is a stage where you don't think of the one solution, but you really just push yourself to generate a lot of ideas. You can call it brainstorming, you can call it research, you can call it anything, but this is a stage where you're trying to come up with as many responses to what you have just defined for the person who you've gained empathy of, right? So empathy is your user, define as your problem, and ideate is how you want to respond to it, right? And then a key sort of rule in the design process is test early and often and fail early and often. So what that does is that it encourages you to prototype. So in business, you can call it a soft launch. Instead of really sitting on an idea for years and then you feel ready and then you launch it, you do very, very soft launches. You do user testing to kind of see how people react and respond to what you're doing. If you're doing apps, for example, it could be a paper prototype that you test with people. If you're doing a product, you can do testing for products. If it's a policy, you can again do policy experiments. So really, this is to support you in creating and testing as many times as you can. And then, of course, you're getting feedback. Feedback helps you in improving. And so that's why it's also a very iterative process. Feedback actually can allow you to be more understanding of the user. So again, it adds to the empathy, it adds to you defining and ideating better, improving your prototype. So I kind of wanted to stress on 3 things a little bit more. So whatever your idea is, and I'm told that you have a lot of really exciting ideas, think of that idea and put down on a piece of paper the person you're trying to solve the problem for. Just come up with one persona that your idea is going to cater to. And then come up with, and after you have that person, come up with an idea that you think will solve that. And that is perhaps the idea that you've already pitched. Think deeply on how you would develop the idea. Is it an app? Is it an actual product? Is it a service? Is it a conversation? So what is that prototype? What can it potentially look like? Whether it's the farmer or a curious child, then you start to also understand them. What influences them? Why are they interested? What is the utility for them? And then you start sharing your idea with other people and you start bringing in technology or business or tools or whatever the thing. So what it does is that it sharpens, and every time you get feedback, you're able to define what you do better, right? So empathy, for example, it comes from listening. In this case, you will go to the curious child, or the farmer, and you wouldn't just talk to them about your idea, but you would really try to listen with your eyes as much as with your ears, right? So you try to see how they sit, how they stand, what do they eat, what upsets them, what are their responsibilities, what are their problems, what are the barriers of their thinking as well as of their actions, how do other people look to them? And that allows you to think and how you influence. So think of marketing, think of ads, they're all catered to a very, very specific target market. And that's what you have to do with your products also. You ask a lot of questions and you listen with a lot of patience, and you kind of understand the person, because it gives you confidence that what you're working on is actually a meaningful problem, and it stops you from forcing your solution or perspective onto somebody else. So what you do for this case is you develop personas, and there's a lot of material, you can look up how to do it, but I think that this is a single most necessary step. When you don't understand the person and you don't give it that persona, which has solid goals, needs, circumstances, limitations, influences, distractions, you're not able to move forward, and you're not able to get a product market fit. You're not able to get a solid business model canvas if you don't understand all of these things from a people perspective. So again, something to think on and something to work on. So we're gonna now go through a few examples, right, which are of ideas where designers actually sympathized and understood the user, not just the user, but the situation. So a lot of the time, the situation is also interesting to analyze. What is the current situation of farmers? What are the current policies, landscape, environment, climate change, vulnerabilities? And then you, a lot of the times, can come up with a solution which can be so different from what you initially conceived, because you're being open. So in this case, the designer came up with, so basically there were a lot of accidents that were happening on road of cyclists because they didn't have proper lanes. And even when there were proper lanes, the turning points, there was just a lot of friction between different modes of traffic. So they came up with this way of doing a signal, how, you have in your cars indicator if you want to go to left, if you want to go to right, and how the light lights up in the back when your foot is on the brake and you're about to take the brake or reduce the speed. So they created these bags that they could wear, and there was a chip and an indicator that was connected with the functions of the bike, and you could do indications. And it was also something that was LED, so it would work at night as well. So I'm going to browse through examples to help you see some examples where the context was given a lot of importance, and from a user perspective. So we all know a Braille, right? How did the Braille actually translate into other things to make to be more inclusive, right? This is something we see on our phones, the feature phones, something we see on ATM machines. So how newer products are coming from it. So people started making brands in which there was a tag label, and the size and the color and the details can also be read through Braille. And we don't have that in our stores, right? So we're not including them in that process. Measuring tapes or medical tools. And now there's a lot of work being done on how to create sensory experiences on a non-touch screen for them to be able to communicate through smart technologies. Then we saw a lot of innovation in 3D for products, but how is this being also used for real problem solving? Like creating medical or prosthetic, solutions for people. Then this is my favorite example of a person who actually used the coffee sleeves as a way to communicate. I also saw examples where people had their resumes printed on this. And so everyone has your resume, everyone sees you're looking for work. Just really, really low cost, smart ways to kind of get your message through. The